Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news, and we've done it. We've hit 700,000 subscribers. We're going to be talking about Sancho alternatives, Memphis Depay, a few other things as well. But I just want to say a big thank you to the United Stand community as ever. We were around 680,000 subscribers when the lockdown hit, and many people said, what are you going to do now as a fan channel when you can't moan and make money off the club? Well, look, we don't moan and make money off the club, and I think anybody who follows the channel knows that's not what it's all about. It's about fan opinions and fans talking amongst themselves. We've had no football to talk about, and we've still managed to hit 700k. So a big, massive pat on the back for all of you, and it just shows what a great community we've got here. So let's get into the show. Sancho alternative again, part 2. It's not Rabbi Matundo. It's not Brooks from Bournemouth. It's an Argentinian this time. We'll also be talking about Saul Niguez, Milinkovic-Savic, and a few other things as well, like Rojo and the appalling behaviour of Phil Foden as well, that really does jeopardise the return of football. But the mainstream media won't talk about that because they're not focused on that at the moment. You know, Grealish and Kyle Walker were castigated for breaking lockdown. And for me, Phil Foden's done something worse. I really do think so. But we'll talk about that in a moment. Anyway, let's talk on about this Sancho alternative. Saw this in the Manchester Evening News, being quoted by other outlets as well. Manchester United are looking at Thiago Almada as an alternative to Jadon Sancho. Now, who is he? He plays in the Argentinian league. He plays for Vélez Sarsfield or something like that in Argentina. He's 19. They were formerly managed by Gabriel Heinzer, actually, who gave Almada his debut at 17 years of age. And look, I'm going to be honest from the start here. Sancho alternative sounds interesting if you are interested in us not signing Jadon Sancho. I don't want to read, I said this last night, I don't want to read about alternatives. I don't want to contemplate, comprehend, or what's the word? Assess, process is the word I was looking for. The thought that we won't sign Jadon Sancho. We're not going to buy a striker by the looks of it because we're going to keep Ighalo. I can't deal with us not signing Sancho. I know I can't, and I don't care what United have to do. They've got to go and get him. If we don't get Sancho, and we got Brooks from Bournemouth, or Matundo from Schalke, or Almada from Argentina, and that's meant to be progress, I'm sorry, you failed, Manchester United. And I don't want to use those sort of words because I think United have done well over the last 12 months. But you fail if you don't bring Jadon Sancho in. It's as simple as that. There is no alternative. It's a massive drop-off if you don't get him. You've got to get him. And whether that means you've got to get Champions League football, and if you don't, you failed, or whether it's down to the board not spending the money that needs to be spent, I don't think this can be dressed up any other way. It's a failure if we don't get Jadon Sancho, because there isn't a player out there that's anywhere near the age, potential, talent, or suitability for what we need at Manchester United, both on and off the pitch. He's perfect. We've got to get him. We're Manchester United. As I've said so many times, we are the Juventus of England. We're the Bayern Munich of England. We are the Juventus of England. I've said that. We are the Real Madrid or the Barcelona of England. We're the PSG of England. We've just not been acting like that for 6 years because we've been nowhere near a title. But we've got to get Jadon Sancho. So you can talk about your alternatives, but I tell you what, if we don't get Sancho and we end up getting this Almada kid or Brooks or Matundo or anybody else, it's a poor. It's not even a second place. You're back fighting for 5th again, and this is not what Manchester United are meant to be doing. We've got to get Sancho, and I believe we will. On Almada, I mean, I've not watched him. He plays in the Argentinian league, and I haven't watched him. He's been there was some I can't remember what outlet it was, but he was named as one of the next 20 best players in the world, and as a young player, and Haaland and Greenwood are in that as well. But I mean, from what I've done, the research I did on him, he's not a winger anyway. He can play off the wing, but he's more of an attacking midfielder. So. Look, I mean, there is no alternative for Sancho that's going to be anywhere near the state of a Sancho, and Manchester United need to get the Sancho deal done. I think it's common sense to talk about alternatives because, let's be honest, you know, this deal might not happen for Sancho, but I think it would be very hard for the club, for Solskjaer, for fans to swallow if we don't get Sancho and we're looking at some of the alternatives that people are talking about because they're just not. They just don't cut the mustard, do they? They really don't. So we've got to get him. Also of interest, there's a few stories I want to talk about, actually. But let's talk about Phil Foden first, because it's topical. So, story coming out last night that Phil Foden of Manchester City was down the beach on Sunday, playing football with the public and posing for pictures. Now, some people straight away might say, well, so what? Lockdown's being lifted. He's got a life. The old bloke who works for the government, he went on a driving trip a few weeks ago. Why shouldn't he? I don't agree with that. Just because somebody's an idiot doesn't mean you should behave like an idiot. You know, if someone drives at 100 miles an hour, and should you do it? If someone jumps off a cliff, should you do it? If someone runs across a burning fire and gets away with it, should you do it? No. You know you shouldn't be doing it. And it's just a lazy excuse to do something that you shouldn't do, to go and do things that you shouldn't be doing. But Phil Foden and any Premier League footballer are not in the same situation as us. They're paid a lot of money and they are being treated like royalty at the moment. They're being tested numerous times a week. They're in one of the safest occupations in the world. If you don't respect that in your own time, what is the bloody point? Like, Troy Deeney quite rightly expressed a concern for his own safety, but more importantly his family's safety. Now, if Phil Foden played for Watford and Troy Deeney comes back training and has been reassured that, look, it's a safe place to be, we're all being tested, everything like that, but Phil Foden's been down the beach on Sunday, not been tested, comes in and spreads it around, oh, we've all got it now, Troy. I mean, it's not the club's fault, it's not the Premier League's fault, it's the players' fault. This is why I've said all along, yes, it's great that we've potentially got the Premier League back and we're working towards that, but it only takes 3 or 4 of these prats to go and ruin it for everybody. And I mean all the players that are putting the hard work in. This is why, for me, I think we should have World Cups type camps for the players. And some might say that's a bit extreme, but how can it be extreme when they do it on tour and they do it in the World Cup? Go and put them in hotels for 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, there's a snooker tournament this week. They all had to check into a hotel on Sunday, self-isolate, have a test. In the morning they got the results, then they could play snooker and they'll be tested throughout the week. And they're being kept in a hotel all week. That's snooker. Football, it appears, we're testing them. They're now doing contact training after social distancing training. They're all testing negative. But in their own time, they can pop and have a party around the beach if they want. And that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And again, it's the minority ruining it for the many. And we might not get Premier League football back because a few Premier League footballers just act like prats in their own time and don't social distance. And look, Phil Foden's the one in the press today, and he's a prat. He's a prat what he's done. I'm sorry. I think he is. Some people might agree with what he's done. I don't. I think that when you go down the beach with strangers and have pictures and play football with them, you've got no idea if they're asymptomatic and they are carrying that virus. And then you get it and you take it to your teammates, forget the Premier League. So and also the risk of life. Surely that's the most important thing. That's why we're meant to be social distancing. So he's a prat, he's a privileged prat, and he needs to grow up. But, and I've got no qualms about saying that. This is like people's lives, and also it's, in a footballing context, it's such hypocrisy to put so much money and testing into football and then let the players go off and do stupid things like that. But let me just say, Phil Foden's been caught. There may well be Manchester United young players doing this. There may well be young players at other clubs doing this who just think, I'm above the law, I'm off to go and see my mates and everything like that. And you know what? They need reprimanding by the clubs. They need to be banned from training for 2 weeks. That's what Pep Guardiola should be doing with Phil Foden. And that's what Manchester United should do if we've got any young players doing it. If they're taking the piss, just ban them from training for 3 weeks. You've had your chance. All right, you can come back in 3 weeks, by which time we'll be far into the season and you'll have to play catch-up. Because it's only those sort of harsh things. I mean, this is a big industry, football, but it's also about bloody saving lives. And I just think it's a joke. I think it's a joke. And I think too many people have sort of took their foot off the pedal with this now and gone, oh, it's all over now, lockdown's over, people can go and do what they want. You can't. You can't go and do what you bloody want. You're risking people's lives. Anyway, I've had my say. Off that. Memphis Depay, Get French Football News, talking about Memphis Depay. He's had a bad injury. He's holding off on signing a new contract with Lyon because he wants to move away, apparently, which you can understand. Lyon are not going to be in European football next season. Obviously, they're not even going to be coming back to play football in Lyon until September in the French league. So Memphis Depay apparently looking for a move, but nobody really biting any interest. Interestingly, because United do have that initial buyback clause. I don't see United going anywhere near Memphis Depay, but it's interesting what you would think about that, because he probably would be available quite cheap. I think Memphis Depay might be available for about 30 to 40 million pounds. Would another club go for him? United will have to refuse it, and I think they will, but will he go anywhere else? Interesting. Could you see him at an Arsenal? Milinkovic-Savic, for those interested in him, the director of Lazio basically saying that if the right price came in and the player wanted to go, they wouldn't stand in his way. The right price for Milinkovic-Savic is going to be pretty hefty. I think we know that Napoli and Lazio are quite well-run clubs, from what Fabrizio Romano said a few weeks ago. And yeah, I think it was the director of Lazio who actually said there will be some players that price drops, but the best players it won't happen. And obviously with Milinkovic-Savic, that's what he's thinking. United aren't in for Milinkovic-Savic anyway. I mean, I know a lot of people like him. I think he's really took his game to another level over the last 2 years. When we were linked to him 3 years ago, he was scoring a lot of goals. He's now become more box to box, and yeah, he's a very good player. But United won't be looking at him for many reasons. We won't be looking at him. It's Saul Niguez Day, by the way. Oh, it's Saul Niguez. I think actually, by the time many of you watch this video, he'll have announced what crap he's doing. It's about an hour away at the moment as I record this, but at 11 a.m. I think it is. He's going to announce what he's going to do. I cannot believe people have actually thought he was going to announce a new football club. But you know what? Fair play to Saul Niguez, fair play to Rio Ferdinand, and fair play to everybody else in his marketing team who've turned this into the big marketing thing that it is. But we'll all be put out of our misery very, very soon in relation to that, which is great. Rojo and Tuanzebe, let's talk about them for a moment. So Tuanzebe was being offered up as a loan deal in Turkey. There was some reports about that. Apparently this has been refused. I would doubt it was ever even on the table. I'm sure a club from Turkey would like to take Tuanzebe, but I doubt it was ever seriously considered by Manchester United, unless we are going to buy a centre-back, because Tuanzebe, if he can stay fit, is probably one of those players that could be an Upamecano, could be a Koulibaly. I mean, it's a big could, but he has got the speed and the differential attributes to Harry Maguire to build a partnership. I don't think Lindelof and Maguire can build a Premier League winning partnership, but I think Bailly and Maguire can. I think Bailly and Lindelof can. I think Tuanzebe and Lindelof can, and I think Tuanzebe and Maguire can. I think Tuanzebe and Bailly are the complementers to the type of Maguire-Lindelof centre-back pairing. So that's the good news. I mean, Tuanzebe's got to stay fit, but I still think he's got an opportunity to really push himself into that first team, and hopefully that will happen. Talking about centre-backs, Rojo, I've been monitoring this for a couple of days, Argentinian outlets talking about this. He's been on loan over there, as we know. Is it Estudiantes or something like that? They can't afford him. I knew this was going to be the case. He went on loan there, and everyone's like, oh, we can go and stay in Argentina. They can't afford 10 million. And it's 10 million enough for him, but they can't afford it. So he's coming back. That's what they're basically saying. He's coming back because they just can't afford to keep him. As much as Rojo would like to stay there, as much as United would like to offload him, they can't afford him. So United are going to have to let him go for absolutely nothing to let him go. And to be honest with you, is that not a good idea? I mean, look, we know the problem with United. We pay stupid money in relation to wages for players that are realistically, if you ever want to sell them, you're never going to want to sell them. Let's forget about how good they are. United pay stupid wages because they pay stupid wages to everybody, and the law of percentage, or whatever you want to call it. If you pay every one of your signings too much money, you know that's going to bite you on the backside, because not all your signings statistically can be a success. And even if they are a success, changing manager, changing the way you play, changing form, you might have to sell them 2 or 3 years later. United need to really address their wage bill, because you look at people like Lingard, Pereira, Phil Jones, Chris Smalling, Marcus Rojo, Juan Mata, all the fringe players. I'm not saying the crap players, but all the fringe players, they're all, if you took their average wage, around 100k. Well, most Premier League players, whether it's Everton or whatever like that, they'll be around 50k if they're lucky. So we're paying players double what they would get at their level. So how can we ever expect to sell them to that level when we're paying them double? Because the Evertons of this world, and certainly the Argentinian clubs of this world, are going to go, 1, we can't anywhere near afford his wage, and 2, we cannot afford his transfer fees. And this is the problem United are going to face this summer. We talk about raising some money so that we can bring in a Grealish or a Bellingham, as well as a Sancho. But how? Smalling has played very well this season. But will anybody have the money to buy him? Lingard, will people have the money to buy him? Rojo, will people have the money to buy him? Phil Jones just signed a 5-year contract a year ago. Will people have the money to buy him? And this is something United need to really address. And again, it's not Solskjaer's fault. It goes back to deals like Sanchez as well. We pay stupid money for players that aren't worth it. And look, I'm a big fan of Luke Shaw, but he's rumoured to be on nearly 200k a week. He's not worth that. He's not. And He's just not. And fair play to him for getting it, and I really like him as a player, but he's not worth that. And if he ever gets injured again or has a bad bit of form, you're never going to offload that player. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm not even talking about ability. I'm talking about when you want to move these players on because you want a better left back or your left back's not playing very well anymore or whatever, their wages are so prohibitive. It's ridiculous. And then we're stuck with this. And then a manager like Solskjaer or Mourinho or whoever can't offload the deadwood that we talk about for years, so they have to keep the deadwood and not bring new players in. And it's a cycle that we've got to break. We're Manchester United. We shouldn't be a club that says, come to Manchester United and we'll pay you way more than anyone else. We should be saying, we're Manchester United. We are a club that you should want to come to. We'll pay you a little bit more than everybody else, but we're not paying you double because you're coming to Manchester United. You should want to come to this club. And it'd be interesting to know what the wages are of Wan-Bissaka, Dan James and Harry Maguire, actually, because maybe United have already changed that. I don't know. I might look at that for the 8 o'clock show. But we certainly haven't done in the recent past. And maybe we are starting to change that. And Bruno as well. Be interested to know what their wages are. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for the 700k. Absolutely fantastic. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new. And we've got a very good video coming up for you at around 2 o'clock today. You know the ones with my voiceover? Got one coming up on Jude Bellingham, which I think you'll really like. Thanks for watching. Have a good day, and I'll see you live again at 8 o'clock.